Hello and welcome to the Shot Clock, the sports debate show where three guests take their turns debating some of the most heated debates in sports. Today I'm joined by my three guest debaters, Abby Haines, Ryn Gately, and Jackson Stafford. We might as well just start off and get right into the first question. Throw it over to you, Abby. Who do you believe is the most or greatest athlete of all time throughout any sports, individual or team?
Well, he was a 6-time NBA champion, a 5-time MVP, and a 10-time scoring champ. Michael Jordan's skills go far beyond the court. He changed the game. His motivation and leadership set a tone for the way players play today. He dominated every era that he played in. He built a global brand that made basketball the way it is today, and there's just never been another player with the mindset and skill set of the way he is.
I think that's a pretty good point, Abby, but I do have one contention, is the fact that he's not even sometimes considered the greatest athlete in his own sport. But you did bring up some good points. He had 6 champions, he had multiple MVPs, and he was definitely considered the greatest basketball player for a very long time. So I think I'm going to have to give you 1 point for that. Let's head over to Ryn. Who do you believe is the greatest athlete of all time?
You know, Calvin, I gotta go with a bit of an obscure sport here. A Scrabble player by the name of Nigel Richards. He has been one of the most dominant players, not only in the game of Scrabble, but basically in any sport that we have seen any point in history, really. He has gained 5 different Scrabble World Championships over the years. He's one of only 2 players to get more than 1, and the other player only has 2. And he's also won championships across the world, including one in the Spanish language Scrabble and one in the French language Scrabble. So I think that there's not really an argument to be made here of who could be more dominant than that.
You know what, Ryn, you make a good point. That sounds very dominant, and as someone who doesn't really know too much about Scrabble, just hearing those stats, I don't think I could ever think of anyone who would be better than that. So just based on being the best at your specific sport in Scrabble, I think that's a good basis for maybe being the greatest athlete of all time. My only question is, how athletic is the game of Scrabble? I know there are some board games which are considered athletics because they're kind of physical a little bit, but I don't know how much Scrabble counts that for me. So I'm going to give you 2 points just because you did have some good evidence for why you thought he could be the greatest athlete of all time. So, last answer for this first round. Let's go over to Jackson. Who do you believe is the greatest athlete of all time?
I'm going with who I think is the best Olympian of all time, and I'm going with Michael Phelps. 28 medals, I think that just speaks for itself alone. He has 23 of those are gold and 33 world championships. And his 2008 Beijing Olympics may be the greatest athletic feat ever. He won 8 golds, most by any Olympic athlete ever. And in 7 of those races, he broke world records. I just don't see how it can get more dominant than that, and how long he went and how consistent he was in every event he competed in. That's why I think he's the greatest athlete of all time.
You know, Jackson, that's a very good point. I mean, when you think of swimming, you think of Michael Phelps, and I definitely think he's the greatest swimmer of all time. And for an Olympic athlete to be the top athlete at that sport definitely gives him a chance to be one of the greatest athletes of all time. For that, I'm going to give you 3 points. All right. We're going to move on to our second topic, which is kind of similar, but maybe a little bit harder to come up with an answer for. Abby, who do you believe is the most overrated athlete of all time?
Well, I'm going to go with Angel Reese. You know, she's a great player. She did a lot in college basketball, but in the WNBA, she's been known to just stir up drama on social media. All I get is clips of her lowlights on my Instagram and TikTok feed. She misses a lot of open layups and isn't the greatest passer, but she gets a lot of hype for. She's just not at the skill level yet for the WNBA.
All right. I can see where you're coming from there. I do struggle a little bit with saying she's the most overrated, simply because I don't know how many people view her as a great athlete, because, like you said, a lot of what I see is lowlights from her. But in that sense, she definitely is a little bit overrated. She went high in the draft. She was one of the top prospects. Not really living up to that. So I'm going to give you 2 points for that answer, Abby. We'll move on to Ryn. Who do you believe is the most overrated athlete of all time?
You know, I might be making some enemies in my home city of Boston here with this one, but I really do think that Tom Brady is a little too overrated these days. I think that no shame to him being the greatest quarterback of all time. I agree with that. But I think at this point, he's been retired for 3 years, or 2 or 3 years now, and he really has just been outside of the sport for so long that I think we can start to focus on different players now. I think that still there's a lot of interest in Tom Brady and what he did for the NFL, but we're moved on. We're past that, and I think that we can start looking at some of the new players, and possibly even in some places that aren't just the quarterback position, to find someone who we can really see leading the charge in that sport.
You know, as much as I hated that take, Ren, you did bring up some good points, but I don't think that just because Tom Brady is no longer in the NFL that he can be considered overrated. He did really do quite a bit for his teams that he was on and just the league as a general. In general, he is probably the most known, well-known quarterback and NFL player of all time. But you did bring up some good points that made me almost kind of think maybe he is a little bit overrated. So I'll give you a point for that one, Ren. Let's go over to Jackson. Who do you believe is the most overrated player of all time?
Yeah, before I talk about my overrated player, I just got to say, I think the Tom Brady take is kind of crazy. I think he's just was so consistent in his career. Was it 7 Super Bowls? Won it with the Bucks, 6 with the Patriots, maybe the greatest comeback of all time. I don't know how we could look to the new, like we can look to the new guys like Mahomes, Allen to be like the future of the league, but I still think that doesn't take away from what Brady did during his time, and it just cemented him as the GOAT for that, so I just don't get that.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that's a good point. How can you say the greatest player of all time is also overrated if they are really the greatest?
Yeah.
Who do you believe is the most overrated player?
Well, I guess it's also a New England bias here with, I'm going with someone from the Yankees, I'm going with Derek Jeter. He's a Hall of Famer. I'm not taking that away from him, but some Yankee fans and other media, they push him to this upper standard that he doesn't deserve. He was considered very clutch in his career, but his playoff stats just are lower than his regular season. And he won 5 Gold Gloves. How? He has negative 152 defensive runs saved. That's the worst of all time. He's double than the next closest guy. And he didn't hit a lot of homers. His OPS is horrible. In Hall of Fame regards, he never draw a lot of walks. And he was only 1 vote away from being unanimous in the Hall of Fame. I don't get how that happened.
You know what, that's a really good point. I think whenever I hear Yankees commentary about Derek Jeter, it's almost as if he's the greatest player of all time. There's never been a better infielder, than him. But like you said, watching the games and seeing his stats, he's not necessarily the greatest infielder, and his bat was not all that great. So I definitely have to agree with you. He's a very overrated player. And that's not just because I hate the Yankees. I think he is a bit overrated. I'm going to give you 3 points for that one, Jackson. All right. With that, we are going to wrap up for this first 2 segments and go to break. When we come back, we'll have the final round between the top 2 point scorers.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw in the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
Cinderella found the pet that fits her perfectly. Tiana gave her pet the royal treatment. Belle found beauty where no one else did. And you can too. Share your heart. Share your love. Bring home your forever friend. Make a shelter pet part of your world. Happily Ever After begins at theshelterpetproject.org.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to the Shot Clock. We're here in the final round between our two top point earners, Jackson Stafford and Abby Haines. And for our final question, we're going to be asking a little bit of a hard one. Who is an athlete of all time that maybe hasn't gotten their flowers? The most underrated athlete of all time. Start with you, Abby. Who do you believe is the most underrated?
I'm going to have to go with Jaylen Brown. He helped carry the Celtics to a NBA championship last year and was the MVP, but he's often referred to as Jason Tatum's sidekick. You think of the Celtics and you think of Jason Tatum. He averages 23 points per game, and he just does it all on both ends of the court, but he's overlooked a lot, so I'm going to have to go with Jaylen Brown.
All right. You know, when you first said Jaylen Brown, I was a little bit weary, but I think you gave some good points. He definitely has always been kind of considered the sidekick to Jason Tatum, and, you know, he definitely is a great player in his own regard. So I think that was a good point. But before I come up with a winner for the final round, we're going to have to hear Jackson's answer. Jackson, who is the most underrated athlete of all time?
Well, when you think about, like, greatest baseball player of all time, Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Mays, and now Shohei, those are the names that are usually in discussion for who's the GOAT. But I think one name that gets overlooked is Hank Aaron. A lot of people consider him one of the best of all time, but not the best of all time. He 755 home runs, I believe, over 3,700 career hits. Like, you take his home runs away from his career hits, he's still a 3,000 career hit getter, I would say, I guess. But his records of total RBIs and total bases, those are all-time records. He's number one in those, and those are never going to be touched. The closest we saw was Pujols, but he's gone, and we're not going to see a hitter like Pujols for a very long time. And just the longevity and consistency that Aaron had, I think, gives him a real shot to be the GOAT of baseball, and is currently right now pretty underrated, I think.
Well, Jackson, you did a very good job of telling me why Hank Aaron could have been the GOAT. And, you know, thinking about it, I don't really ever see him in any of those top baseball players of all time, maybe because he's not the most exciting name to talk about. But he definitely is underrated. And for that, I'm going to have to give you the points for this final round. So our winner for today's Shot Clock is Jackson Stafford. Thank you all for watching. Tune in next time.